Well, good evening, everybody. As we get rocking and rolling here, hopefully everyone's warm inside, staying outside of the crazy frozen tundra. That's Austin. We're just going to pause here just for a minute while we have a few extra folks who are joining. Welcome to everybody and good evening. Awesome. Well, I bet we'll have a few extra folks coming in, but I want to get started right away. Good evening to everyone. I'm Mike Davila. I'm one of the partners of College Inroads. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Emery, my business partner, is not joining us tonight. She is in the middle of filing a bunch of FAFSAs, which I know is not a whole lot of fun. So I know she would rather be here with us. But tonight we're going to be diving into one of the subjects that we work with students on, which is the career search. And typically for our formats for these webinars is usually we'll talk for about 20 minutes or so on whatever topic. Then we'll open it to discussion questions about the topic and then pretty much throw it open for questions on any subject within the college planning realm. So that's what we're setting out to do tonight. If you'd like, you can mute yourself so that there won't be any extra background noise. That's always appreciated. Tonight's session is recorded, so for whatever reason, if your student wasn't able to attend with you tonight, no worries. Inside each student's folder system, there is a subsection called the monthly webinar, and all the links for the past 12 months webinars are in there for you guys to go back and peruse at your leisure. So anyway, that's all good. Again, I hope everyone is nice and warm and toasty tonight. I know it's a really chilly evening. That's probably why we have a lot of folks here tonight, which is great. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see the title slide here, the career search. Again, I'm Mike Davila, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight with you talking about this pretty important subject. So why is this important? First and foremost, we want every one of our students to be really happy with their work lives and their career choice. I've done this for the last 20 years or so, and I have definitely seen some macro trends happening. I've had lots of discussions with parents who've come in saying, wow, I really wish that I had these types of tools when I was 17 or 18, or hey, could I get a copy of this so I can work on my own career planning? So ideally, through going through these, it's not a magic wand, but what we have seen is that students can gain some extra introspection into themselves, which is really important, not only for choosing a major and a career, but also for the application process. So there's some varied important uses for this information. And for those of us who are financially minded, absolutely having a 4-year degree finish in 4 years is actually a really important thing to have happen. There are a few degrees out there that require a little bit more than 125 or 30 credit hours to complete the baccalaureate, but there's not a whole lot of them. And you'll see some of the statistics tonight when we go through them that it's taking a lot of people a long time to graduate from college. And part of the reason is switching majors. And the third reason that I like to go through this information is because there are a lot of career possibilities out there. There are 6,000 undergraduate majors alone. And that's just the majors. We're not only talking about the careers. And many of the careers that our students are going to end up being in later down the path, they're not even created yet. So there's a lot to this subject. So we're just going to handle the stuff that really is hitting us right now in front of the wolf closest to the sled, so to speak. One other administrative note, I will say we do have quite a few folks on the call tonight. If you would like, you are free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go through. If not, then we will definitely have a question and answer at the end. So either way, we'll answer your questions. Okay. So getting into it, parents, let's, I'm curious, how did you choose a major in a career? It looked good on TV. I had a lot of classmates at the Naval Academy who went there because it looked good in Top Gun, the original Top Gun movie. My dad did it, or my mom did the career. So, sometimes apples don't fall far from trees. And we as parents ended up in a career field that our parents did, or it didn't. I didn't choose one. It just kind of happened one day as my college advisor asked me what I was going to pursue as a major, and I chose something. I've heard that happening before. My teacher or counselor in high school recommended a career to me because of the aptitudes I had or the interests that I had, perhaps. Or I went to a majors fair on campus and I really liked what a certain perspective a professor had. And I liked the discipline, so I ended up in that particular major. So by the way, I love those opportunities, even as high school students, to be able to talk sometimes with college professors about what they do and what they research. That can be really helpful as you tour campuses. All right. I knew that I was lousy at a certain subject, whether it's math or English or whatever it may be. So I just completely avoided that particular path in college. And I've had some parents do that as well. Um, I wanted to make the maximum salary possible. Certainly that can be a factor. And I think that's an important thing for today's age. I think 20 or 30 years ago, people used to kind of push that to the side a little bit. At least in my industry, they definitely did when I first started, because we, again, just wanted to focus on happiness, which I think is great, but we also need to be able to pay the bills. We also are making a huge monetary investment into the education in the state of age. One quick thing, guys, we have a lot of background noise. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that would be fantastic. Just want to make sure that we have the mute buttons on. Okay, thank you. It was considered prestigious to become a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, an Indian chief, whatever it may be. That is also something that hit us as parents. Or, hey, it was always my passion. I researched it, I interned and job shadowed. It had a really great growth potential and it fit my personality and I was good at it. I don't know, parents. That probably never really happened, but that's the theory. That's what we would love to see happen for our students for sure. So here are some facts. These are provided by the National Center for Education Statistics. So 33% of all undergraduates will change their major throughout their college career. So that's a pretty staggering number of students. A third of all the students that go to college, the millions of students going to colleges, are going to change their major throughout their undergraduate experience. And 10%, which personally I think is a little bit low, of all undergraduates will change it 2 or more times. So when we start thinking about that, I don't know about you guys as parents, but I used to always hear this advice, hey, go find yourself in college, that sort of thing. That's all good and fine, if you have a general idea. And that's one of the things I'm going to be saying tonight, is that we need to at least have a general idea what we want to do. 41% of all undergraduates will graduate within 4 years. So that's it. That's the national graduation average across public schools, private schools, all different types of institutions. Only 41% of students will actually graduate in 4 years. So, that means basically 6 out of 10 students are not, getting done on time. So there could be many, many reasons for that. But I know for darn sure part of it is changing, directions midfield. So other factors that we see from the National Center for Education Statistics, it takes about 4.5 years for students to finish their undergraduate degree. Um, I'm going to pause here really quick, gang. I'm going to go in and make sure everyone is muted off here. Okay, give me just 1 second. Mute. And okay, I think we got it. Okay, no more background noise. Here we go. So basically, what does that mean? If we're spending 4.5 years to finish, we might be overspending on college by a semester's worth. And that may not be a lot in some institutions, but if we're going to the average private institution, that could be 20 or $30,000 that we're spending that we may not have needed to. So it can be a real monetary factor for us. And then the last little factoid that I would give is that Gallup actually had a survey a couple of years ago that went out to all these graduates of college, and 36% of them said that they would change their major if they could go back and do it. That's pretty shocking. When I saw that data, I was really, really surprised because I figured, hey, the people who finished college are hopefully happy with what they studied, but wow, 35%, that is a large percentage of people who say that they wish they had done something else or had a V8. So yikes. I also wanted to go into a little bit of what are the current trends in terms of winners, so to speak. These are jobs and industries where there are just ridiculous numbers of openings and places where if you're looking to go into a place that is very, very prevalent and easy to find a job, these are some hints. These are some places. So the first one is individual and family services. That's like social work, counseling, psychiatry, psychology, things of that nature. That is, of course, you've probably seen this in the news, but that's no joke. There are tons of jobs waiting for people in that industry. Same thing with healthcare. That is absolutely, that's no new news. And software development, that's another area where the Bureau of Labor and Statistics have identified lots and lots of really great opportunities. Those are just industries, but the careers, nurse practitioners, data scientists, information security analysts, statisticians, web developers, logisticians, and physician assistants are kind of at the top of the list. There are others that don't require a 4-year degree that are also super hot in terms of careers, but I just put up the ones that require at least a 4-year degree. Now, the other ones that are listed here, these are the fastest in decline. None of us are probably going to be taking careers in these these areas. Things like tobacco manufacturing, coal mining, metal fabrication. That's probably not us. But I figured you might like to see some of the biggest losers as well. And just anecdotally, through the last 2 or 3 years, if someone said, "Hey, Mike, what major slash general areas do you see most of the students who are college Inroads students going into?" I went back and took a look. Engineering, business, psychology, and computer science were some of the biggest winners. Those are probably the most common areas that I see students going into in this day and age, at least within our clientele. So if I'm a student in this day and age, what's a great strategy to employ if I don't know what I want to study in college, if I don't know what I want to do when I graduate, and things of that nature? And this is a very step-by-step approach. And we kind of lay it out throughout our process with our students. But the first thing I always recommend students do is the personality type assessment. And that is what we use as an adaptation of the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. So most of us as parents have seen it, done it. Governmental agencies use it. Corporations use this. It's been around literally since the 1920s. I mean, it has been around forever. It's been adapted for students. It has been, researched and redone. The ASVAB, most of us have maybe heard that. That is absolutely an adaptation of this. So anyway, personality type, we like to look at innate defining personal characteristics. I think that's a great place to begin. It's a foundational place to begin so that we don't end up in a job 10 years in going, wow, how did I pick this? I might be making a lot of money, but this certainly doesn't fit who I am as a human. So the Myers-Briggs has 16 different types. Each one of them have strengths, each one of them have blind spots. But I really like looking at this information right up front because many of these words and phrases that are accurate within this assessment are clues into what we really need to be writing in our resumes, in our essay questions, and things of that nature, so that the colleges get a much broader view of who we are as human beings, because that's what they need in these narratives that we're going to be sending in the application phase. The second layer, so the personality type is number one, the foundation. But on top of that, in this day and age, I like to look at aptitudes and interests as well. So not only just like, hey, what's innate to your personality, but what are you good at and what do you like? So what you're good at is within the U Science assessment, and each person ends up with a unique set of characteristics that are matched to individual careers, which I absolutely love. And then the interest areas. This is also housed within U Science. What we end up with are these things that are called Holland codes. John Holland was a researcher about 50 years ago who did a ridiculous amount of workplace study. And his essential thesis was birds of a feather flock together. People who are super realistic need hands-on, tangible things to be working with. They sort of gravitate towards certain industries and areas. Artistic people, they gravitate to other areas, et cetera, et cetera. So all of us have elements of each one of these, but we like to look at the top three variables. So, for example, your student may be RCA, which is realistic, conventional, artistic, or IEC, which is investigative, enterprising, and conventional. All of us have these mixtures of different ratios that help us see, hey, what would we really be enjoying doing? What would we like to do as a particular career? Okay, so essentially we want to be up in this upper right-hand quadrant. We do not want to be in a place where with our aptitudes and interests where, for example, we have low aptitude and low interest in a career field. Maybe we did it because it was, really enticing for money or whatever. That can be very draining. We might absolutely have to spend a whole lot more time in that particular, the day-to-day functions of that job to actually get it done. Whereas really we want to be in a career where our aptitude is really high. Our natural ability to do the job is there before we even begin. And then our interest in that area is also really high, combined with a personality type that fits. So once we've gone through those assessments as students, we need to ask questions and take action. So some of the questions that I think that we as students should start to ask, hey, what is the job going to pay? What standard of living do I expect to live at when I start in this career? What's it going to look like 5 or 10 years down the road? And again, in U Science and somewhat in the personality assessment, they list this information really prominently so we can see, hey, what are we stepping into? Will the job even be around in 10 years? That's a really good question. I was actually looking back at my U Science results, and I looked at a career that, wow, really fit me, but there were only like 2,100 jobs that were likely to be opening up in the next 10 years. So it's really thin. So for me, I might enjoy that. I might really have a lot of aptitude for it, but I may not choose that job because that might be really hell on wheels trying to get a job in that career. And then what can I learn about a career before going to college? Like I remember when I was in high school, I toured the college. I wanted to go into the Navy. I remember there was a ship that pulled into Galveston Harbor. I went and visited the ship, talked to the officers on board. They gave me a really nice insight, even if it was just a couple of hours, for me to see what was life like going to be. And if we can get into that position as a high schooler, I think that's a really, really outstanding opportunity. One, we can talk about it in essays, but number two, it's going to form some impressions. So are there professional associations that are interesting to me that I could join as a student in college? So for example, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, they have a website. You can go on and look and see what's going on in terms of current research, in terms of the industry. You can look and join as a student that professional association. So those sorts of things can be really nice for students, and not a lot of people do that. The second thing that I like to offer up is informational interviewing possibilities in the local community. So, for example, I have a student who's really interested in chiropractic care right now. Great. His dad has a friend who lives on the coast who would be able to talk with the student about what it is to be a chiropractor in this day and age, the pitfalls, the great things about it, and everything in between, and possibly even do some job shadowing while the student's there. So those are all really important things for us as parents to start thinking about. Hey, my student's looking at business. Is there a possibility that we could get, in line for an internship, even if it's informal, with a company over the summer? Can I also get into some discussions with college professors regarding this particular career? Absolutely. Many times, as we go to visit campuses, we have the opportunity to interface with college professors, either through the formal presentations that happen on campus through the information sessions, or lots of times I've had parents and students come back from college tours saying, yeah, we just went up to the area where all the professors' offices were. We went and saw somebody who was drinking some coffee and knocked on their door and said hello. Fantastic connections. And then finally, enrichment activities. So along with internships and those informational interviewing opportunities, many college campuses are going to have essentially what I would call summer camps for coding, for information security, for all sorts of different niche areas. So in your students file section, there is a section called summer enrichment activities. And in there is a Google sheet that's being updated as we speak with all the current links. Now, word of the wise, if we're looking ahead to this next summer in terms of enrichment programs, many of those will start to pop open for applications here in January, maybe February, and some of them will actually close for applications in late February, early March. So just be looking at those types of things right now for the summer. And if you don't see anything in that spreadsheet and that you're really interested in, just contact us and we can do some additional research for you in that area of interest. And then again, local internships, I really can't emphasize that enough. If you have that chance, that's fantastic. Or job. There's lots of things to do over the summer. Okay, let me make sure. Okay, yep, got it. So how else can I use these insights that I gain from these assessments? So I would break these into two different areas. So the first is small scale, tactical use. So these assessments also, if you dive into them deep enough, will show you what your strengths are in work, in school, and socially, like how you use these abilities that we have. And that's in use science. But also there are some what I would call strategic use. And this is within the describing use section of use science. So I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to pop over to use science just for a second so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So let me pull this up. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, so this is my own personal use science results. So I don't mind sharing that with you. But if you go into this describing you section, you can kind of see, okay, specialized born, researcher, strong communicator, decisive, good instinct, whatever. All these really nice terms that can be used to describe yourself through the resume, through stories that we tell in our essays. And then it's going to give us some statements that we can use in resumes, things of that nature. I'm a born researcher, consultant, or advocate for a cause. Yeah, that's pretty true for me, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see interpersonally, I enjoy discussion, thinking out loud, tend to be outgoing, et cetera. So you get the gist. There's lots and lots of resources here that we don't really have a chance during our career session with your student or yourselves to go through. There's a lot of depth here within these assessments that are areas there that you guys can explore independently. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint here. Okay. All right. So what happens if I just can't decide on a career or a major? Okay. Do not panic. It happens. It happens all the time. Okay. So I want to assure everybody all is not lost if we don't end up on, day two knowing, hey, I'm going to be a biomedical engineer and go to this college specifically and go through this career progression. Nope. For most of us, this is a path that we're on. So we're going to be learning as we go, learn along the way. So it's important to use those tools right up front so we're not way off the path. But I'm going to mention to you and really recommend just staying with the course. Okay. So 20 to 50% of students probably go in undecided. The key is to find the right building on campus and then build skills that are going to be flexible across a lot of different career areas. So again, look at the diagnostics, talk to teachers, talk to friends that are already in college in disciplines that we want to go into, talk to professors, consider the work you've already done. Like I know when I went to college, I was like, I'm pretty good at math, but I'm far better in the humanities. So I chose a major that really lined up well with my strengths. And then also, once we get to college, we have academic advisors in every division on campus. So you should be able to sit down and have some really in-depth discussions with an academic advisor once you get to college as well. And a word on liberal arts. I think that this bears mentioning. There's a lot of fear. There's always been a lot of fear by parents specifically about going into a liberal arts type of institution. But it's important to know the liberal arts is not necessarily just a major. It is a way of learning. So in a liberal arts institution, which by the way, there are far more liberal arts schools than there are research institutions across the US, we're not going to choose a major in the first year. We're going to be choosing a major in the second year after we've had a chance to sample a lot of different disciplines. So that's I've talked with students about that, especially really high caliber students who are interested in too many things. Like I really love biology, but I also think I want to do business and I play music and many of these students do exceptionally well in a high caliber liberal arts kind of college. Well, guess what? Rice is liberal arts, University of Chicago, Princeton, these are all liberal arts institutions in their core. So anyway, just to put a word out on that as well. So what if I need more resources? Again, this recording is going to be available to you. This slide deck is available as well. These are some links that give you additional, and I think almost all or most of these are free, ways of digging further into career guidance. So I'm not going to go through each one of these, but they're really nice. And some of them, for example, like this last one is put on by Arizona State University, and it's for people who are super visual. So it literally is a bunch of flashcards with different activities that you would be doing in jobs. So if you don't have a lot of time, if you're a real visual-based learner, that's a great little tool for you. So some takeaways. You have a lot of resources at the disposal, and there's a lot of time still left to discuss, to learn, to explore different potential careers and majors. My thought is, man, you will be much more happier, more productive, have a better outlook on life, have more career growth, which may also translate into better quality of life with better earnings, which leads to more control over your path in life, which typically makes people happier. So this work is an upward spiral. If we dive into it and really apply ourselves, it's fruitful and it's beneficial. So let me see. I got a couple more slides here just for some administrative stuff here. So if we were a junior this year, creating and revising your resume is typically what a lot of students are doing right now. If you've been with us for a little while, that's definitely something that's happening. Those of us who just joined, you're probably starting with your major and your career investigations and assessments now. Here in the spring semester, almost everybody's going to be going through the college search and research process. Starting to plan college visits. If you haven't started looking at dates for getting to campus, it's a good time to do that. I will share with you Since COVID, this has been deprioritized for most families to the point where a lot of people now are saying, hey, I'll go to visit a campus once we've been accepted. Okay, I understand that. Most people are pretty comfortable going online, looking at virtual tours. But if you do have the chance to get to campus, man, it is a phenomenally good experience for, especially for those of us who are sensors within the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. Those people need actual experiences to make choices. So if your student's an S, go to campus. Um, Standardized test prep. Yep. A lot of the students now are looking at the March test, which will be the first iteration of that adaptive SAT. So people are prepping for that. Demonstrating interest in your top choice schools, which means going on the website, signing up for additional information, visiting campus, talking with their admissions reps, things like that. That's all kind of starting to happen at some level right now. Starting to look at the summer enrichment programs. Hey, are we going to do, are we going to be a coach, swim coach this summer? Are we going to do summer enrichment at a college? Things like that. And then finally, finishing the semester really strong. That is super important because we're in the sixth semester. So this is the last semester that colleges are actually going to have a chance to see grades before sitting in committee and debating the record. Now, does that mean we should like blow off senior year? Absolutely not, because colleges are also on the application seeing, hey, what college or what preparatory classes are we doing in our senior year? In some cases, they're looking at mid-senior year transcripts and definitely final transcripts. So yes, we want to finish this semester strong, but also finish next year strong as well. So I blew a lot of hot air at you in about 20 minutes or so on this topic. Let me open up some of the chats here. Okay, any questions on any of the material that was brought up tonight? Okay, so what advice can you give to a student afraid her film major or degree will be useless? Okay, well, that's tough. So interestingly enough, film, it can be a very, very lucrative career, but it could also be very difficult to land a job in. So I understand this particular dilemma, but what we also have to start to think about, this is, I'm going to sound like a college admissions rep now, so I apologize, but the skills that we're going to gain, whether they're interpersonal skills, whether they're technical skills, that is going to translate. And I can tell you, I've talked to countless parents who are like, yeah, I have a history degree. Now I run a company, or, so the idea is that we want a high quality education. We want to make sure we end up and land in a place that is a high caliber institution that's teaching us those life skills that we need, along with the technical stuff. So our job as a consultant is to say, hey, this school, this school, this school, that's going to be on target for us, especially for those life skills. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Does it look bad to take off campus senior year? That's a great question, Jamie. Thanks for asking that. I know that some students will do that for sure. It's a question of content and what does the rest of the transcript look like and who are we applying to? So it's kind of a complicated question to answer. But for students who are looking to go to UT, Princeton, Duke, whatever, the litany of maybe the top 150 schools, it's probably advised not to do an off period or two. Now, if you're taking 4 APs in your senior year and you're taking one study hall, that's not going to kill us. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. But I have seen people say, hey, I'm going to take 3 off periods because I've finished all of my underpinnings that I need to graduate. And by the way, I want to go to Swarthmore. And you're like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. So there's a lot of variables. If you have questions about that, just give me a shout. We could look at it personally. Your educational consultant can talk to you about that too. Okay. Then another question, what would a typical summer camp pricing be? I found one that was about $3,000 for two weeks. Is this not necessary? Is that under the spreadsheet? Is the spreadsheet under files? Yes, thank you for that question. They're all over the place in terms of pricing. Some of these are ridiculously expensive. Some of them are free. And yes, the pricing, the links, the application deadline, all of that stuff is listed in that spreadsheet in the student's file. Let's see. How can a student with diverse interests and skills decide on a major? She's already completed U Science and other assessments without much clarity. Okay. So that's a great question. What I like to do, Shweta, is start. Let me see if I can find an example of this here real quick. Um, this is what I like to do, especially when we have a lot of different areas represented in U Science. The one improvement to U Science, if I could change it, I would, by grouping the careers into areas. So, for example, you may or may not be able to see this, but like on a piece of paper, and this is a student's U Science results, I'll go in and say, okay, what areas are represented first? U Science doesn't do that for you. So, like, for example, the student had business, psychology, something I call med tech, which is kind of like exercise physiology, genetic counseling, clinical research coordinator, nursing, computer science. So we are then able to say, okay, these are the 4 or 5 major areas that are represented in there. And then I do overlaps between the personality assessment and the science assessment. So what are we seeing in terms of synergy? That typically knocks down the variety so that you could start focusing on various elements. So that's one technique that you could use with just the assessments that you have on hand. If that doesn't work, then absolutely, I'd go back into the presentation and dig out those links and start looking at some of these other assessments as well. And then doing some of those other things like informational interviewing in the areas that look like the most interesting. So hopefully that will help with gaining some clarity there. Great question. Any others? Everyone's frozen, quite literally. So I know this is an area that generates a lot of concern, it's a lot of fun, but it is also an area where, we as parents, we probably didn't do any of this work. Those of you who I haven't worked with, I will tell you a real quick story, and this might generate other questions, but I never did assessments when I was a senior in high school. I went to the Naval Academy because my dad had been in the Navy. He just said, hey, get a 4.0. If you're going to go into the Navy, be an officer and go to the academy. So I said, okay, sounds good. I had a really good career in the Navy. I was, by the time I was 29 years old, I'd been selected to go back and teach at the Naval Academy. I had personal awards. I was offered a $50,000 bonus to stay, a department head school, free graduate school. I turned it all down. You know why? Because that career did not fit my personality. I did not want to get up and do my boss's job. I did not want to go on any further. So for me, I was an ESTJ in the Navy. I'm actually naturally an ENFJ, and that's a prototypical counselor. And so I'm doing really right now what accounts or what feels to me not like work. It feels like fun. And, that's the kind of thing I want to see for everybody. So that's the reason why I push the personality stuff really hard. But 20 years ago, U Science didn't exist, and now it does, and it's a little bit of an advancement. So I again like to use the in tandem. All right. So other questions? Anybody else brave enough to ask a question? All right, gang. Well, it's oh, here we go. Here's another one. Where is the okay. I think I see. Okay, so Natalie asked, hey, where is the assessment as to whether or not the SAT or ACT is the better test? Unfortunately, what happened when the SAT went digital, the provider of the diagnostic exam that we used to use said, nope, we can't do an assessment on this. We cannot tell you which is going to be better. So What we're doing now, within Appleroot Test Prep, there is an SAT prep and an ACT prep. There are diagnostics for both of those tests. So the student can do a practice SAT and a practice ACT. We can look at the equivalency chart, and that will tell us probably what's the better test for the student. So it's not as clean and easy as it used to be, Natalie. I'm sorry about that, but the digital SAT changed everything. Any others? Okay, going once, going twice. All right, gang. Have a great night. I hope this is helpful. And this recording will be available in your students folder tomorrow. So have a great evening, folks. Thanks for joining.